Good evening. Welcome to Kaleidoscope. My name is Ruby Rae Liu, and today I am joined by founder of SoulFam Hostel, Chase King, a great hostel in Cape Town that I had the privilege of staying at a few months ago, and my co-host, Luigi. This is
Wow.
Kaleidoscope, Perspectives Beyond the Surface. I am what happens when you practice touch typing too much on the keyboard and stumble onto some websites about podcasting. Chase,
That's it? Finished?
I'm finished. Yeah. I'm not sure how those two connect.
Okay. I don't know if my
People
intro is
can
going
use
to
their
be as
imagination.
clever as yours, but what I will say is that I'm really excited to be here and thank you for inviting me to Kaleidoscope. So a bit about me. So as you mentioned, I'm the founder of SoulFam Hostel, and it's the first LGBTQ plus inclusive hostel in Africa. And it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I created this space because I wanted to create a space that was based on chosen family and inclusive and makes people feel seen and welcome. And so I feel like I get to achieve that every day. And I connect with the most amazing people from all over the world. And I really feel proud to have created a safe space in Cape Town. So thank you for having me.
You definitely did achieve that for sure. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yeah, that was a really good intro. Well, hello, I'm Luigi, porn futurist. Me and Ruby discussed this title before the show, and she declares, she says, now, I swear it's something that's real, but according to the internet, it's not. So Ruby says it's some weird Mandela effect, but I swear to God, porn futurism is real, whatever it is. I'm just trying to sound smart and academic.
Please explain, because, okay, wait, let's give Chase an opportunity. Based on what you've heard so far, Chase, what do you think porn futurism is?
Yeah.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I don't quite
A
understand.
similar response to what I had.
It sounds really smart, doesn't it? Well,
Mm,
I said it has nothing to do with porn, but I
mm.
thought I could just, defer to the internet for the explanation. No such thing. Futurism, though, was a movement in I don't know, maybe the 60s? No, not that far back. Further back, sorry. Like in the early 1900s, futurism was the movement. But I swear, within that movement, one artist said he was a porn futurist. Or maybe I read it somewhere. And it's just so archaic and so cool and so academic, the internet can't even find it. Not even ChatGPT could tell me what porn futurism is.
So it's
But
about
anyway,
art.
it's about like it sounds really hokey. Like everything you'd think it is just like just going into the future. No, I sound really silly. It's an avant-garde movement, and it's about like just just going for it, hating everything old. That's it.
Okay.
Mm.
You know,
Screw traditions. I want porn in the future.
it rings a bell for me.
What does that look? I want sex with robots. There you go. That's what porn futurism
Mm.
is.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of it? Anything like this, Chase?
Never. No, but it sounds really
Well,
interesting though.
I'm starting a movement.
Are
Start a
you?
Futurism's real
movement.
though. Futurism is real. I don't know if there's anyone in particular that said porn futurism.
I have a question then for everybody. Part of the quick fire round that we have. If you have only 10 seconds to respond, if we'll start with Luigi, we'll go to Chase and then finish with me. If you had a art exhibition, what would you call it?
10 seconds.
You have 10 seconds. Luigi, you're first.
Oh, I'm first. I thought
Yes.
Chase was
Yeah.
first. Well, then I'd call it porn futurism. I'd call it
Okay.
sex with robots.
Sex with robots. What
And
about you,
it
Chase?
would just be a ripoff of who's that guy? What's that guy's name? Either is it Peter Nagel or Patrick Nagel? That artist from the 70s who made all those futuristic, sexy robots. Dude, just be a ripoff of that.
Fair.
That's what it is. That's it. Can't be any more creative than that. Not in 10 seconds. My brain can't function.
What
I,
about you,
I'm
Chase?
curious.
I think for me, I would go with something that's, probably just more straightforward and simple. I call it queer joy because that's the art in my hostel already, is it represents
There you go.
queer joy, queer identity, so the guests can see themselves in the art when they come and stay here and they feel represented and seen. And it's a way for me to show that I see you, I empathize with you, I welcome you. So that's the kind of goal of the art in the hostel currently.
I would call mine lipstick silhouettes. And
Ooh,
I would just go around putting lipstick on all sorts of people and taking like really sensual photos of their lips and printing them out. And then it will be like an exploration of identity through lipstick.
So
wow.
the art would be like pictures of their lips with lipsticks, with lipstick on them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pictures of
Sometimes it
lips.
will
Yeah.
be like bad lips or, yeah,
That's actually a really good idea. I wouldn't be surprised if someone somewhere has already done it. But if not,
maybe.
Ruby, get on that. Just make it happen.
Sure. Chase, do you have a quick fire question for us before we dive into the more meaty stuff?
Quick fire
We're listening.
question. Hmm. So it's funny, actually. We do a really cool event every Wednesday called Q&A, and I wrote the questions myself. And so one of the questions that I find that's always interesting um, is if you were a scent, what would I smell when I walk
Oh,
by you?
love it. No, that's a great question because I know what
I
I
get a
want to
lot of
smell like.
abstract answers to this question, so it's very
Okay.
interesting what people say.
What's the weirdest answer you've gotten
God, I think something
that you can
food
remember?
related. I think something food related, like breakfast or something like that. I was just like,
Baked baked
that's not where
beans.
I was going, but great.
Baked beans and ketchup. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, pretty strange. Spaghetti and
Hmm.
meatballs. That's
Spaghetti
not
and
what I want.
meatball.
I don't want to smell like that. No,
I mean, it
if it
fits
what you think,
Luigi.
hey,
The Italian vibe.
right? Now, but okay, is it about what they want to smell like or what they think they'd smell like, or what smell manifests
Mm.
them?
I think that they answer more so in terms of what they want people to smell. Like, so what they want to give off. So,
Well,
yeah.
I can talk about my favorite scent I've ever worn and that I cannot recapture. And it was some lotion that I bought from some shop in New York a long, long time ago. Because in another life, I was selling natural beauty products, and one of the scents was of wormwood, and it was
Mhm.
the most amazing scent to me, and I loved it so much, and I could never. And then they discontinued it, and to this day, like I still want that scent, and like if I ever found it, that's all I would ever want to smell like that one particular scent of wormwood. So like absinthe is the other like that's what absinthe made from wormwood. So it's got this. I don't know how to
Ah,
describe this smell. So if
Perfect
nice.
anyone's ever
smell.
smelled it, they know. It's kind of
And
musty, I could say.
what emotion would I feel like smelling absinthe or wormwood? Like, what would I feel when I smell that?
It's a good question. I can't speak for other people, but when I wore it, I just felt attractive.
Ooh,
The
okay.
scent makes me attract. I felt like this scent makes me attractive, makes me, seem clean and manly. But it wasn't one of
Okay.
those overbearing, like musky man smells. Like men often wear perfume that's like musk, and like musk, I think is too strong. I hate it. So, like,
Mm,
I really like. I feel like men, on the topic of scents, men don't have a lot of scents that are like oriented towards like fruit and
Mm,
spices like women's, and
yeah.
I find those scents are a lot more pleasant and smell a lot more clean. So like why can't a man, but like when a man has to smell, he's got to smell like really heavy, like again, musk or like woody. But the absence smell, it was like that, but not so much. So I mean, I would rather smell like, eucalyptus and like lemons and stuff and oranges and lavender and like jasmine. That's
You
another thing I
sound
wore a lot of.
like a Yeti soap commercial. Do you remember those?
Yeah, but I know it. They still sell it. Like when I go back home in the summer and I'm in the grocery store, like those Yeti soap bars are still there. Every kind of soap maker makes the same scents, like mint, eucalyptus, whatever else. So like I guess I kind of defer to mint and eucalyptus if I can. Like those are the only kind of light scents left for men. But
But
I
they have like
wish you two
orange as
could
well.
smell that. I tend to go to like the stores. Okay, so in and maybe Chase knows this too. So there are stores like Marshalls. Do you know what Marshalls is?
Yeah.
Okay, so he knows. So this is a big store that does fast fashion, whatever. Everything's sold there. So makeup, whatever. And so
Mm.
I go to the section with like the makeup and the body creams for like the women, and I look at their bars, and they have like, you know, vanilla orange, and I just smell them. I'm like, yes, I want to wash in this. I don't want to wash in like the manly musky soap bars.
Mm.
Fair.
There you go.
My scent would be like orange zest with cinnamon and crushed vanilla with just like a hint of freshly cut pine.
Wow, that's so
Yeah, see, that's
specific.
really specific. The pine's really nice.
Yeah,
I could talk about scents forever. Now I'm just before I came home, I went to a coffee shop to get beans, and I wanted to get more espresso beans, and then I saw like the espresso beans were there. This is espresso, and I'm like, I know I need this because my machine is an espresso machine, so I got to get the beans. But it said like plum, like sugar plum and smoked vanilla, and I was just thinking like, well, if anybody knows what a sugar plum is, it's not really a fruit. It's like hard candy. There's no scent there. And then the other one was like Christmas blend, where it was like, it said spiced chocolate. And I was like, yeah. But then it said, like, I don't know, like pine needles. And I was like, that's it. That's the one. Like, even if it's not espresso, well, it's going through my espresso machine. I might hate it, but those scents are what sold me.
it's gonna be good. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I like pine because
Yeah.
it makes me feel like it's got like the scents I described are fresh and they have a homey like cottage feel, and that's what I like.
Mm.
Are there, now I'm going to sound really like a bumpkin, but do they have pines in South Africa?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I know. I don't know about this. Like, I think pines, I just think of like
Hold
the
on.
Americas.
Sorry, I'll be back.
Ruby got a delivery.
Oh, is that what?
Probably. They don't really, when you request something, they might take your request. Otherwise, they're just gonna like bang on your door
Okay.
and then say, come and get it. Or they don't listen. They're just so rushed to deliver.
Yeah.
So
And it's so funny,
they'll ignore
funny
it.
how you both answered because you guys both answered kind of more literal in terms of like an actual scent, but oftentimes the responses I get are I want them to smell confidence, or I want them
Oh,
to smell appeal, or I want them to
yeah.
smell
Well,
warmth,
yeah.
like more abstract things. Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked, why people wanted like actual scents they wanted to smell like, or what they want people to
Yeah,
smell.
for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do you smell those? Like, what does confidence smell like? It's something you see.
I don't know. Walk by me, Luigi, and you'll smell it.
Pheromones, sweat.
Yeah. I mean, it
That's what
really
I
is
think
a
of
lot of
your.
science behind that, like
Yeah,
pheromones, like you're attracted to a person's pheromones. And it's really fascinating in terms of just like attraction, like there's a whole science behind it.
right. Yeah, and I think and that's the other thing too. Perfume can kind of like skew that, let's say, attraction, because
Mm.
if it is all pheromones, do the pheromones come through, shielding them with perfume or covering them with perfume? And then is that like an honest assessment, or is that a kind of like seduction or manipulation of the other?
Yeah. And that's the funny thing is I feel like the joke is on us because we already have natural pheromones that attract a mate. And so we're
Yeah.
actually covering up our natural gift to attract the right person. And so, but I think we've all been conditioned to think that, these scents make us more attractive, but really our natural scent is the most attractive
Yeah.
scent that we have.
That's a really good point. I'm not going to bathe anymore. I've decided.
Oh my God. No.
I wouldn't
I'm
recommend that.
I can get away with it.
You have a naturally nice scent when you don't bathe.
I always wonder. I always wonder, like, do I smell to people? We all have our own
Mm.
smells. But, I'm
I
always
can
wondering, am I smelly today? What do people think?
you smell good.
Thanks. Thanks,
Uh,
Ruby.
okay.
I try not to smell
I,
people.
Well, to your mate, you smell irresistible. But to your non-mate, your non-soulmate, you smell smelly.
Yeah, you could look it up.
maybe.
You could look at it like that, yeah. Like, you could write poems for a person that is attracted to you and they'll love the poem, and the person that isn't, they'll call the cops.
There you go. It's
Okay,
all
let's move.
context.
Let,
That's funny.
did,
All right, Ruby,
Luigi,
go.
do you have a quick fire question for us?
If I did, I forgot it. We just dived into so many interesting things. Okay. No, I gotta think of one. No idea. No, but this scent thing was a good warm up.
Fair enough.
Glad you guys enjoyed the question.
I mean, I could
Yeah, it
keep
was
talking about
excellent.
it. Ruby, do you have
Now
one?
you're gonna
Or did
have
you
to
already
come back
ask?
because I want to know every single question you've written down for Wednesday.
Yeah, there's so many, and they're really like meant to be just like not normal questions, just to make people have fun with it and be playful. And, the discussion doesn't have to be so serious. And so that's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
One of my biggest regrets this last time when I went to South Africa, I don't regret things, right? It's not how I live my life. It's not a mantra I follow, but I wish I had stayed at SoulFam Hostel longer in Cape Town.
Yeah, that would have been lovely, honestly. And what's great
Yeah.
about SoulFam now is it's sort of transitioned into a community space now. So now oftentimes what ends up happening is because we're so full, is previous guests will ask to come just to just to hang out. And so I kind of my way of just keeping the doors open, even for people who can't stay as long,
Do you
and still
think,
want to be
Yeah.
a part of the vibe.
yeah. Do you think the guests come to hang out just because the place is just so amazing? They can't afford it.
Yeah. No.
That's what I mean. You say people come back. Like, I don't want to
Mm.
stay the night. I just really like the place. Do you sell coffee there? You should just turn it into so many things. There must be a coffee shop in it.
No, there isn't. I think honestly what it is they want to stay, but because we're
Yeah.
sold out, the next best
Yeah.
thing is to just come and hang out with the fam. But I think it's because they
Yeah.
honestly genuinely feel connected to the people here. And so,
Yeah.
when you're a queer traveler and you're a solo traveler and you're looking for community, and you want to just have to go to the bars and clubs or use the apps. Sometimes it's nice
Yeah.
just to go to a space that you know is going to be accepting and open, and you're going to have people who like truly value and want to connect with you. So I think that's kind of what it's become for people.
I was telling Luigi before I came on, like, I was blown away searching on Airbnb for a place to stay. And I typed in like queer LGBTQ, and suddenly
Yeah.
there's this hostel that like unabashedly just goes, yes, pro, safe space, chosen family. And it was like a no-brainer. It made me feel so much relief. And then going there and the whole vibe was just so welcoming. And
Mhm.
Luigi, there's like
Yeah.
this huge horseshoe kitchen, and it was like one point I think it was like 12:30 a.m. In the morning, and all of us were just standing there. I was and just having a chat. It was amazing. So I think
Mm.
it
Yeah.
represents to me what all hostels want to be. And that's awesome.
That's
Like,
beautiful. Thank you
yeah,
for that.
it sounds like,
There we
yeah,
go.
a
That's my
feeling of
review.
home.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it sounds great. Right. And yeah, I ignorantly said to Ruby, like, oh, aren't all hostels by default? Aren't all places by default LGBTQ,
Mm.
like, wouldn't they just allow them anyway? Why would it be an issue? That's my bad cisgender male brain asking these
No,
privileged
I think,
questions.
no, you know what? I don't think it's that. I think it's an ally brain. Because to people who are allies, they just don't, it doesn't make sense. Like the exclusion
Yeah,
doesn't make sense. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah. It seemed really
I think
fluid.
also too, I think hostels like by default have a diversity policy, meaning that they tolerate people from different backgrounds but they don't necessarily go out of their way to make them feel welcome and that they belong. And I think that's the difference between diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a really good point.
yeah, most hostels are diverse, but they're not inclusive. And so I think they think that by just simply saying that we're LGBTQ friendly, that makes them inclusive. But no, like actually, taking time to understand the queer community and our needs and taking steps to make us feel welcome and creating events that allow people to connect, that's inclusion. And so that's kind of what we practice here at SoulFam.
for sure. And I think that's a really good segue into what Kaleidoscope is meant to be. Perspectives beyond the surface of what we think or see. And I would like to invite either one of you to share the first perspective. I know Luigi likes to go last. Chase, do you have, I have a lot of questions for you, but I'm wondering, do you have a perspective that you would like to share on Kaleidoscope, or would you like me to lead?
I'm happy for you to lead.
Okay, I'll start it off. My perspective, this is the first time in my new studio. It's still being unpacked. I've recently moved, and one of the things that has changed for me in this move is realizing that sometimes and it's crazy that like this made me realize it, that sometimes we let things hold us back because of what we think we are okay with. And people don't
Mm.
go for the thing that they really want because they think that they are okay. I thought I was okay with my previous apartment, and it was right next to this main road. The move was a disaster. It did not go as planned. But now in here, even when everything was a mess and before anything was packed out, I felt a sense of PTSD from not hearing constant traffic noise. And
Mm.
I've been sleeping better, but while you were there, my brain just shut it out.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
my perspective. Like awareness of your surroundings
Yeah.
and breaking the Plato's cave, so to speak, of exploring other surroundings and going, hey, this is better. And then not doing that for yourself is a mistake. Always go for what you need. I don't know.
Always take risks.
Yeah.
Like,
But
push
this
yourself
wasn't a
for
risk, right?
growth.
Like I didn't take
Yeah.
any risks. I
You
just
wanted to
avoided,
change.
yeah. I don't know what I did.
Yeah. Well, you needed to move and you wanted to move. But sometimes we're so comfortable, or you could say, I'll say this for the sake of argument, happy in our misery that, change is really, really tough and stressful and overwhelming. So even if our
Mm.
lives are bad, this is what I hear. And I mean, I'm sure I'm probably one of these people. Even if your conditions are bad, they're familiar. And that's why it's so difficult to change. Because maybe what's out there, it could be better, but it could be worse. And maybe
Yeah.
that's why people don't want to take the risk. But I think it's more just they're just so comfortable with, what's familiar.
Mm.
They say people are creatures of habit. So that's why it's so difficult to change. I mean, there's just so much knowledge on this subject. But I find it interesting that you were affected by the lack of traffic. Maybe became like a kind of white noise for you. I was telling someone today that when I wake up in the morning, like I remember my last apartment, it was just dead quiet. And I loved waking up in the morning to just silence. And now when I came here, I was dreading all the traffic. And when I wake up in the morning, I can hear the tram and it's this like hum. But that's like white noise now that I look forward to in the morning. So yeah, we freak ourselves out. But then when the change happens, so it was interesting how we adapt, and maybe it's not as bad as we
I
perceive it to
think a
be.
tram is more predictable, though. A tram's noise is more predictable and kind of
It
soothing.
definitely has this. Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
That's for sure. But traffic, just like what?
What about you, Chase? Like, I'm not sure exactly if I may be so bold. Like, I remember you telling me a story about getting kind of stuck in Cape Town and then making the choice to move and start this awesome hostel.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because think I and this kind of ties into what you were saying earlier about like not going after what you want. So I think, I knew that I wanted to be in hospitality probably 2 decades ago. But I think what held me back was this like lack of confidence and like fear of failure. And I think that that becomes sort of stifling for a lot of people in terms of just going after their
Yeah,
dreams, trying to pursue what makes them happy. And so I think for me last year, I just made the decision to just get out of my own way and just stop making excuses for not doing what I know I love to do and not living my purpose. And, when you find your purpose, you're going to feel it in your bones. You're going to feel it in your soul that this is what you're meant to do. And I think now that I've, finally made the decision to go on this journey and to go for it, knowing that there's very few spaces like this that I can even speak to someone else about in terms of like, well, how was your journey? How did you create a space like this? I kind of had to just sort of stay in my lane and just do what I felt like queer community wanted and what would sort of benefit them. And I just followed my heart and my intuition and my gut. And it's a very liberating experience when you take the risk, you take the leap of faith, and you just go for it. And you don't worry about the outcome. You just stay present and stay passionate and curious. So for me, this year has probably been the most, um, I guess, revelatory year for me in terms of just my resilience and my ability to just, take huge risk. And so, yeah, so I think, I really sort of reflect and think about like how the world would be if people just got out of their own way and just did the things that their hearts were telling them to do. I think that people would feel much more fulfilled and find a much deeper sense of happiness and purpose in their lives.
yeah. Can I ask a question, Ruby? Can I? This might sound, I don't know. This might sound silly. You might think that's a dumb question, but so why South Africa? Were you just passing through?
No, so I actually discovered South Africa 15 years ago. I studied abroad here when I was a junior in college. And so
Really?
it was the first country I went to outside of the States. And
Yeah.
it made a huge impact on me. And so that's kind of what started this whole journey was that sort of moment in my college experience. And then, like I said, it took up until now for me to finally execute a dream that I had many, many years ago. So,
Wow. I didn't expect didn't expect such a like thought out decision for the place. Because for me, listen, I didn't even know South Africa was a place until I started living and working in China and interacting with South Africans. That's how
mm,
inexperienced I am. But from what I've learned about it from Ruby, it's just like a really, in terms of LGBTQ plus. It's a really tough place. But again, I could be wrong. I mean,
It depends
maybe
on
I
where you
only
are for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to do what you're doing, like super brave, super admirable, I think. So like I'm just wondering, were you and your hostel's the first of its kind.
Yeah.
So was that an idea that just came to you, or were there other hostels in other parts of the world that did that? Again, I'm not very well traveled. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think it was a combination of things. I think I lived as a digital nomad for 7 years. And so I was constantly, moving from country to country, 2 months here, 3 months there, 2 months there. And what I realized during that whole journey is
Yeah,
how difficult it was to find community as a queer traveler. And so for me, it kind of came from my lived experience. I'm like, "Oh, okay,
yeah,
if I'm experiencing this as a queer traveler, I'm sure there's other travelers as well who find it very difficult to, to meet people and to connect beyond the kind of, typical venues that we're, having to subscribe to, which is, bars and apps and things of that nature. So that
right.
was part of it. The other part was that I did discover a town very near and dear to my heart in Mexico called Zipolite. And it's a very interesting place. It's very, very queer, very bohemian, nudist kind of vibes. And I remember staying in a hostel or like a kind of a guest house hostel kind of hybrid place.
Right.
And it was for queer. It was for queer people. And it was the first time that I had experienced being in an environment that felt like chosen family. Like I felt like I effortlessly made friends in that environment. I met people who were like-minded and shared my sort of energy and vibe. And so
Sure.
that was kind of one of my initial inspirations was just experiencing that kind of environment. I was like, oh wow, I would love to recreate this type of environment in Cape Town. So it was very cool.
What was the scariest part for you? Like making that decision, going from it's LA, right?
Well, I moved
Yeah.
to Washington, D.C., but I'm originally from
Oh,
Los Angeles. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So the scariest part about like going to Cape Town, because I have to admit, like from from the perspective of a South African, and that's changed drastically in the past couple of years to the point of another story that I would like to share in a little bit. But I would never have been able to conceive of someone coming from a country that is more financially stable and developed to move to South Africa. Now I can definitely see why and how.
Mm,
But what was that for you?
yeah. No, it's a good question. I think for me, that early experience study abroad in Cape Town, what it taught me was that it's important to provide spaces like especially for queer people where there's lacking. I
Yeah.
think US and Europe has tons of infrastructure for queer people. There's tons of hotels, bars, you name it, organizations, meetups. And so for me, I've always been drawn to places that didn't have resources or that lack infrastructure. Because then it's like you're building, you're creating, you're expanding. You're not just adding to like the noise that's already there. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think it's just more exciting of a journey to challenge yourself and to create something that, doesn't exist in a particular location rather than, you know, just being another bar or another hotel or another
Yeah.
whatever in a queer friendly place.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the
Definitely.
thing.
Yeah. I think it's a great feeling to blaze trails.
For sure.
Definitely. I could see why you do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Kaleidoscope
Speak
has
as a what? Go ahead,
has a
Ruby.
5-year plan, Chase. We
Does it?
I Yeah, I would like for Kaleidoscope to become part of your like weekly process at SoulFam because in the next 5 years we want to open a bar in Cape Town for comedy
Ooh.
events and arts and live podcast recordings. Yeah.
That'd be amazing. That's so cool.
And to do that, like I've registered we're starting. It's going to be a brand house, but we're starting with Ember Jewelry, and it's going to be selling queer jewelry in South Africa,
Nice.
and growing from there. Yeah,
That's beautiful. I love that you're going on
yeah,
that journey. It's, you
yeah,
know, it's not for the faint at heart, is what I always tell, people who go on this
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey because it's just filled with so many ups and downs and surprises. But at the end of the day, it's what's exciting, you know, to experience that.
Chase,
Luigi. Mm.
ever have any like were there was there ever any people who antagonized you when you decided to do this? Or, everyone
Oh
pretty
yes.
supportive? Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I get it all the time actually. So it's interesting. So, a story that I don't often tell people is that when I first started SoulFam, I actually found a location for the hostel in a neighborhood in Cape Town called Boca, which I'm sure Ray or Ruby knows that it's quite conservative. It's actually the Muslim neighborhood in Cape Town, and
Wow.
I naively thought, well. Of course, even though it's a conservative area, I thought of Cape Town as this, oasis of progression in Africa. And so I didn't even think much of it. And so when I found the property and I signed the lease and I decided to, open the hostel, I actually got contacted by an influencer, local influencer in Cape Town. And we created a post on social media. And because he had such a huge following, the post went viral. And it got back to the local community that I was creating this LGBTQ plus inclusive hostel. And there was a huge backlash against it. Basically, just to make a long story short, the landlords canceled my lease and forced me out of the property. The landlord also got death threats and just all kinds of hate for even allowing me to occupy that space. And it was just very clear from the local community that they did not want us there. And,
Yeah.
so I decided to take the high road and, you know, I kind of bowed out gracefully and it actually worked out in the end because I feel like the location that we have now is 100 times better and way more safe, way more inclusive. But yeah, but also when I post on social media, I get all kinds of, comments about, ignorant comments about this being a sex house or this being a brothel. Cause, people automatically assume anything queer is sex
Yeah.
related.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I think, it doesn't really faze me. I know that people speak from their own ignorance. And so I don't take it personal. And to be in this kind of business, you have to have tough skin. You just let people be where they are.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was kind of my initial experience. But now it's a lot, I would say, not a lot of hate really.
It it's such an odd thing for me because like I am unabashedly a sexual being, but at the same time I'm also just a human and queer and also a teacher. So all of these
Hmm.
things can combine and be easily compartmentalized. Like,
Yeah.
adults are humans, are sexual beings, right? And
Hmm.
this is something that we all do, and for us to have frank discussions. And I don't really like to mix the term normalize into this because it sets people that are ignorant and phobic off on a tangent of, oh, kids are being evolved or whatever. And it's just wild to me that it always goes there. It always goes to the
Mm,
worst kind of
mm,
imaginative
mm.
BS about what might happen behind
Yeah,
something that the closed doors where people have no idea.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it just reveals where people are at just mentally in terms of what they think about our community, in terms of, preconceived notions they have about queer people and our culture. And I mean, just the other day, there was a guy who came by the hostel and I didn't think anything of it. People come by the hostel all the time asking for tours because they're curious, because we're a new hostel.
Yeah.
And it turned out that his whole intention was to find a hookup at my hostel. He was married to a woman, and then he was trying to find someone here that he could, you know, have some fun with.
Yeah.
And so, like, again, I think it's just people's reptilian brain when it comes to queer.
Yeah.
It always goes to like the lowest common denominator, and they never sort of acknowledge or realize that what we're doing is so much bigger than that. Not that there's anything wrong with sex or any of that, but it's just not the foundation of SoulFam, and it's not the most important thing about our mission.
Right.
Of course not. No.
Yeah. I listen, I hate to pry, but for the sake of entertainment, how did that man or person find out, like, how did he come in and then realize, oh, that doesn't happen here? I mean, I think it's good he had that experience because then,
Mhm.
if anything, he might tell someone, like, the world might know that isn't what happens at that place. And it's better than someone never coming and not having the experience, I think. But anyway,
Yeah.
how did he figure it out? He could not have explicitly asked. Well, I guess he could have, but I can't imagine he did.
Yeah, so he actually was pretty explicit, and so what ended up
Okay.
happening yeah, is
He
so it turned out, yeah, like, so he wanted a tour, and so, of course, I asked one of my staff, like, "Do you mind just kind of showing him around?" And
Yeah.
then I guess he pulled one of my staff into a private conversation and asked him point blank, like, "How do you feel about giving me oral right now?" You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Or even saying, like, "I find you attractive, like, can we do something?" Like, it was
Mm,
that explicit and that direct. And so I think
wow.
seeing the shock on my staff's face, I think quickly made him understand that he was definitely in the wrong place and that we're not
Yeah.
about that here. And so, but sometimes, like I said, you'd be surprised at the things that people say or think or how they behave when they don't have an understanding of, the queer community.
Absolutely. I think it also speaks to, like, it's symptomatic of a greater problem too. Is this kind of, I don't know, puritanism, prudishness? Like, people aren't
Yeah,
free to be themselves, so they have to go and seek out these kinds of trysts. Whereas if we lived in a world where everyone was truly tolerant, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. It'd be understood. It's
I
it's
agree.
human
100.
nature. Yeah.
That's also interesting for me, for someone like that, like this married man who obviously doesn't want to leave his wife, but
Yeah.
wants to experience whatever, sex with a different person. I don't. This is a man who is clearly or probably polyamorous, or so he there's a world in which he doesn't have to leave his wife. He can be completely honest and open with her the way that he should be, and he
Mm,
can do what he wants, right?
mm,
But he can't be himself, so he does this, and it's so much more toxic.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you both are saying is so important because it's like you're seeing in real time societal conditioning and how it creates sort of deviant behaviors in people because they don't feel free to be who they are. It creates this sort of extreme where now they're creating situations that make other people feel uncomfortable because they don't feel comfortable with themselves.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like you said, Ruby, is that there is a world where you can be who you are. If you're a polyamorous person or you're attracted to both genders, you can do that. But societal conditioning tells him that he can't, and that he has to, maintain this facade of being this straight cisgender male married to a woman because society will reject him and he won't be able to live openly the way that he wants to. So for me, it was like seeing that scene yesterday. Yeah, it made me quite sad that in 2025 we still have people who are living a double life and not living their truth out of fear of what society will think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of why the LGBTQ community gets conflated with, okay, there is the problem of sex work from a space of desperation, or the best way to make money safely or whatever exists. Um, but we as a community also get conflated with these sexual tropes and misconceptions because we are free to be ourselves and because other people are not. And I've
Mm,
read a few times like people who say being gay or being trans or being whatever is a choice is because they are choosing to be straight. Like it's not a choice.
yeah,
You are what you are, right?
absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I think you're onto something there because I feel like part of the hate or the aggression that we get is because they resent us for the fact that we're so liberated when it comes to our sexuality. And they wish that they had that same liberation within them rather than having to, in their minds, do the thing that everyone expects them to do. But because we don't have those same boundaries, it's like we're now being labeled the enemy, because we get to live the life that they wish that they could, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
unapologetically themselves.
They want that. They want that. You're right. Well, I can only assume, but it's like they're denying themselves something, and it's that bravery that they envy. So
Mm,
the next best thing is to stop you from doing it, so they can say to themselves or assure themselves they were right all along, and then they don't have to. They don't have to like fix themselves or or
And
be accountable.
yeah.
And then there's a factor of we're talking about they. Of course, not all non-queer people are they. Like allies are definitely, even though LGBTQIA doesn't explicitly include allies, they are part of the community, right? Because they are the ones who are being themselves and they're just
Mm,
straight, and that's fine.
yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. And that was one of the surprises with SoulFam was the overwhelming number of guests that are non-queer that stay here. I did not expect when because I was, as you know, I'm very explicit in my branding and marketing that this is an LGBTQ plus inclusive space. So I thought automatically that that would just turn off non-queer people. But
Yeah.
in actuality, it's the opposite is true, that people actually like being a part of a space that is inclusive and celebrates diversity and doesn't judge people based on how they identify. So it shows that society is craving this. Like they have an appetite for this type of space, but I think because it's not as ubiquitous quite yet, it still is something that's very niche and, not as common. But I think people subconsciously want to be a part of a society that is inclusive and doesn't discriminate or separate people.
Yeah,
I
for
think I
sure.
think you're not giving yourself enough credit, Chase. I think people also come because you've made like a really dope hostel. Because I went online and I looked at the website and I thought, damn, this place looks nice. Looks better than my apartment. Like that's why I want to go. Like again, like what Ruby says is like if you're tolerant, you're tolerant. So it like doesn't even register. Like who cares if someone's queer? So like you don't care if there's like I mean I can go to a hotel and there's people there who are queer. I don't know. So when I see a nice place and I can afford it, oh, I'm there.
Yeah. And I think funny enough, Luigi, I really feel like you just highlighted a lot of people's mindsets when they book. It really is not that deep. It's just very much like, oh, nice place. I can afford it. Let's go for it. Like they're probably not even reading into the fact like the LGBTQ plus mission, none of that. Like that doesn't even register. And that's why some people come here not
Yeah.
even realizing that they booked a queer inclusive space.
Oh yeah. Definitely could be. Yeah. Like
So it's
it's just weird to think, there are people who think there's just some queer person lurking in the shadows ready to like hit on them. So they don't want to go somewhere. It's just so silly to me.
like we have no self-control. Like we just have to like hit
Yeah.
on
I'm ready.
anyone and
Let's go.
everyone that we find physically attractive.
Yeah, and like that cliche, like I mean, there's so much like so much in art, and it sounds bad to say that, but there's just so much in art, and when I say art, I mean like literature and whatever else of this trope of the queer person being bad, and a big part of that is too like a lot of that has origins, I think, in like American cinema from the past, things like that. I mean, we can
Mm,
think of the more popular things like Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill is a really
mm,
popular one where like, the queer person is evil and things like that.
yeah,
And there's another Michael Caine movie from a long time ago where he was like a therapist, but a cross dresser and he stalked a woman, things like this. So there's all that kind of bad stuff, which is just that
yeah.
people
It's
see that and think it's a window into reality is just so wrong-headed to me.
it's an easy avenue into othership, like the other,
Yeah.
concept of the other. What did you say in the previous one? The dark forest hypothesis. Similar to that.
Mm,
Oh, right.
Um, yeah. At
What
least
is it? What is
there's some kind of
a dark queer
crossover there.
forest?
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
it does share the same elements, right? You're in
Sounds
this
like a fun
place.
place though.
A lot of fairy lighting.
You're gonna go in there, all you're gonna hear is like cats purring, and there's gonna be like there's gonna be some fireplace somewhere where everybody's just chatting nicely, and yeah,
But yes, I guess you are drawing some parallels. You're in a place and you don't know who's there and if it could be dangerous or not. That's
exactly.
the
yeah.
And whatever makes it more strange makes it more scary.
yeah. But maybe that's just because you're not, in tune with yourself and you're afraid of
Mm.
what you might do because for whatever reason you think it's not right, which is
That
just
brings us
silly.
full circle to don't be afraid and do the things that you need. And we should
Yeah. Yeah.
probably move on to the next perspective.
Wait, what was this perspective? I forget. I'm
This
forgetting a
one
lot today.
was, moving house can
Oh,
you need to
right.
identify the things in your environment that make you uncomfortable.
Feel the fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, well, I
That's a
don't know. I
famous
wasn't
that's a
scared of moving. I wanted to move. I just didn't realize how toxic that environment was for me.
well,
Mm.
why was your old apartment toxic though? Just because it had a lot of traffic sounds?
No, because of the noise and the size and the feeling of coming home and the distance and the all the like little things, the little concessions that I made to my quality of life in order to
Mm.
stay there.
Well, I mean, everyone does that, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying make fewer. Like you can definitely make some, but I just made way too many. Like I had to walk 400 meters to get to my car. I had to like rush to work every morning. I had to deal with bad noise. The
Mhm.
place was too small. All of these things, right? And I
Cost
stayed there for
cost
5
benefit.
years.
Yeah. I mean, I think about
I
my
was overpaying for sure.
I
So
don't know how much was your last apartment more or less than your current apartment? Or
less,
just say
but it
more
was
or
also
less?
half the size.
Mm.
It was three quarters the price and half the size.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Okay.
think again.
Chase,
Okay.
do you have a perspective to share for us?
So, and when you say perspective, like, can it be on any topic or?
Absolutely anything.
Like anything that grinds your gears that you want to talk about that will just
Or
turn us
something
into a
that
bunch
helped
of
you. Sorry, you
Mm.
carry on, Luigi.
I was just this like gossipy hoes, whatever. Just like, spill the tea. Anything.
Or something that helps you become who you are today.
Mm. Okay. Okay. I feel
If
like
there's anything
go for it. Go for it,
Oh, I was just gonna
Luigi.
say, if there's anything that's come to your mind lately that you just thought about and you're like, huh, I wonder. Just anything lately, the secret lives of everyday objects. What does the table think?
Well, it's funny. I feel like the thing that popped into my head was leadership. And the fact that when I embarked on this journey, I never wanted to be a manager of people. And for
Okay.
me, I feel like what's been really fascinating for me was just having to grapple with the idea of leading a team of people and that dynamic and having to navigate, people's feelings, when it comes to being in this space and how often those can shift very suddenly. Leadership is a very funny thing because it's like I think we've all at some point have worked for someone and we all have in our mind like what we think is a good leader and who we think is a good manager and I think it's so funny when the
Yeah.
tables turn and then you're now in that position where you're now having to lead and then all of a sudden it changes, like before you would, you know, it's almost like now I feel empathy for my previous managers who probably thought that I was such a little a-hole, for, giving them such a hard time. And now that I'm in this position as a leader, I realize how challenging it can be, to embody this person that feels authentic, but at the same time, creates a sense of, inspiration for people.
Yeah.
It's been honestly, I would say it's been one of the toughest things I've had to navigate on this journey is how to be authentically myself, but then also someone that people are inspired by, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And I feel like the two don't always converge, but it's a work in progress, I'll say.
At the risk of being controversial, I disagree.
Wait,
Mm.
disagree about what?
I think that you are, maybe this is not true, but I think that to me you came across as being completely authentically yourself, and you absolutely inspired me. Um, to take a lot of the risks that I'm found a partner online, a fellow trans woman who lives in South Africa. We are now 50-50 owners of a registered company in South
Wow.
Africa, and that is partly due to your inspiration.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That honestly just like makes me want to cry to know that I had that effect on you. It just, yeah. And I think what you all are seeing in real time is I'm my own worst critic. I struggle with that.
Sure. Yeah.
I sometimes do have imposter syndrome when it comes to success and building things because I still just see myself as just like special, but just someone who just really truly cares about the queer community and just wants to do something great. And that's it. And so if I have a positive effect on someone's life or I make someone feel welcome, then for me, that's a win.
The queer community is missing, especially in South Africa, because the environment is actually so conservative on the surface. Like Cape Town is definitely an oasis, but
Mm.
it's an oasis for people coming from the outside. There's this like conservative net around. I think one of the things that's lacking, and I might be wrong in this, but from my perspective, is a solid like network of, for lack of a better term, boss ass queer people just making a killing.
Yes.
And I want to be part of that group of people
Yeah.
that are making a difference every day, no matter
Yeah.
how small. So that's kind of my goal.
Yeah. And that's my general feeling as well, to be honest with you. I do feel like there are other queer entrepreneurs here, of course, but I don't feel like we've developed necessarily like a network or community where we're all supporting one another. I think everyone is kind of sort of doing their own thing more or less. Of course, when I started promoting, a lot of people approached me to want to do partnerships and things like that. But to be honest, a lot of them don't come to fruition. I think people just get really excited. Like they get that new shiny syndrome where they see something new and they're like, ooh, I want to like learn more about that. But then when it actually comes to building something solid or like creating a network, that tends to not really manifest as much. So And it could be just the culture in Cape Town. I mean, I grew up in LA, so this is a culture that I'm all too familiar with. People presenting themselves as genuine and wanting to build something only to like
Yeah.
never hear from them. So, so it's
Ask me
not an
about
unheard of
authors
here.
that want to come on Kaleidoscope. There have been a few, and none of them come to fruition.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was gonna be like, don't bring that up. What if there are authors on Kaleidoscope? Shame.
I'm sure eventually there will be, but so far, none.
Everybody wants to be a writer, but nobody wants to write.
Mm,
Mm.
that part.
I'm full of
I can
pedantic
say the same thing
cliches today.
about I could say the same thing about like, partnership and entrepreneur. Like everyone wants to
But
be an
yeah,
entrepreneur, but no one wants to build anything.
yes, it's the same sentiment. Like as soon as they realize the work involved, they kind of go, they don't
It's no
want to
longer
commit. So you have to have
romanticized for
some
them
kind of, you have to have
anymore.
that, yeah, you have to have that grit and like really have to push yourself. It's like, you don't want to do it. It's like you got to brush your teeth. Nobody wants to brush their teeth, but they know they have to. So they're the people who know they have to and they force themselves to do it, even if they're miserable. And
Definitely.
they can see they can the benefits or hope for the benefits of putting in the effort. But most people, not most people, but there are people who think in the back of their heads, it's not going to work out, so don't bother.
Yeah.
So
Persistence,
yeah,
perseverance, and the other thing that I think the one of the big stoppers of people doing cool stuff is somebody else has done it already.
yeah,
But you
that's a
have to
Mhm.
big
realize
one.
there are no new ideas, or everything has been done already.
I
Right.
can say,
Everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When definitely a younger Luigi always used to he was definitely one of those, someone else did it, so what's the point kind of people. And then he sees people still doing those things and going like, why wasn't I the kind of person that could be like that person who just did it anyway?
Yeah.
So yeah, I will admit I am one of those defeatist kinds of people. And I'm just riding Ruby's coattails by being on this podcast.
No, no, you're definitely a positive contributor.
Yeah.
No, but what you're saying is so true, though. I think so often people have this false belief that in order to be an entrepreneur, it has to be like a uniquely idea, like it has to be like never done before. And that's not true at all. Some of the most successful businesses in the world have are repeats or copies of others, but they just did it better.
Yes.
That's all that they
Yeah.
did. They had better execution. They had better marketing. They just were just better than the competition.
Yeah. 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 I can attest to that. I mean, this is something Ruby and I probably know a lot about. If you're in the city we're in, my goodness, there are so many coffee shops. Everybody has a coffee shop, and it's just all the coffee's all the same. And we wonder, how do these things operate? First of all, it's China, where you don't expect them to love coffee so much, but it's such
Mm,
a pastime here. And
mm,
it's just, I think the selling point of all these things, all these shops, is that they're just always different. And that's the most interesting thing about them is their aesthetic. How are they going to
yeah.
do it differently than the other ones? And of course, obviously, they're like the big conglomerate coffee shops that are brands and, they operate like Starbucks, so they have a million other flavors. But the smaller ones, where they just have, the usual coffees, Americanos, lattes, like
Mm,
cappuccinos, so limited. And it's like they don't even make like third wave coffee. Like they don't make pour overs. They don't have like coffee bean flavor profiles. It's just like espresso and lattes. But everyone, it's just how it looks on the inside that draws people really. And it's like the space. And I think why it works so well here and why people continue to do it is because I honestly think people do not like being in their apartments. I don't think houses here
mm,
are built in a way that is like a space where people want to be, which is weird because it's your home, but it's just the
yeah.
culture. So it's all these third places that are so sought after. So you have so many like examples of people doing the same thing, but they still have the confidence to do it, which is
Yeah.
admirable, obviously. It's great for me because, like, I love a reason to just go and sit in a coffee shop, and like, the novelty is just exponential. It's great.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh, it's so fascinating.
Ruby, what are you thinking? Am I wrong?
No, I'm thinking so while you're talking about this, I'm running my
Yeah,
mind back to you saying SoulFam looks so cool and you would love to stay there. And then I'm
yeah.
thinking, I'm gonna be going back there. And I'm wondering, are you coming with me to Cape Town? Forget Bangkok.
Hey.
Don't ask me travel questions. You know how one
That's
of
why I'm
my
bringing it up.
big no, one of my what's the word? How what did we discuss before? My lack of growth, whatever. My
I
fear to do something is travel. Traveling for me is just like such an
Really?
overwhelming thing. Yeah, most people love travel, like, it excites them. Me, I'm just like, feels like work. Like, oh my God. I gotta plan, I gotta pack stuff, and what if I forget something? It's just I am a creature of habit. Like, I don't love staying home all day, but I like knowing I can I can just go back home right away.
Hmm.
don't plan.
It's like if I'm
Feeling of comfort.
yeah, I do.
Don't plan. That's the
Don't plan. I'm
my
not
my
gonna plan. I'm
favorite
not
part
gonna plan
about
at all.
traveling to South like as a South African, I've all my life been plagued with the necessity of planning to get
Mhm.
visas. It's why I
Yep.
love going to it's why I love going to Thailand because I don't need a visa. It's why I
Yeah,
love traveling back home because I don't have to plan. I just arrive and book a
Yep.
hotel. And
yeah.
then like that's what I did with when I came to you. It was like 2 days before and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming." Perfect. No planning required. And then
Exactly.
I'll be
That
like,
is great.
"Oh, I'm gonna go check out this place, maybe this place, maybe I'll not." And
I
that's
think yeah.
awesome.
Okay. I think I could be that person if I had a lot of money. If money
Mm.
wasn't an issue, I'd be like, that place looks good. Let's go. You know me. Chase doesn't know this about me, but I feel like I bring it up in every podcast. It's my terrible relationship with money.
Overspender.
Oh,
No,
no
I
pressure.
am the absolute opposite of that.
So you're
I
frugal.
will, I will use a paper towel and then hang it up to dry to use again later. I'm not really like
Oh
that, but that's,
gosh.
you get the sentiment. I got to work on my money. My relationship with
Yeah.
money is,
You gotta enjoy your
too secure.
life. Money is meant
And
to be
yeah, that's the other
spent.
thing. That's what they say. It's a tool. I understand it's a tool, but I have a really bad emotional attachment to money that I am slowly
Mm.
working on. It's true. I'm trying to spend a little bit more than I usually do. Hey, I bought coffee every day this week. Do you know how hard that was? Every day in the morning. I'm like, oh, you don't need it, Luigi. But I'm just like, no, just do it. And it is so painful. The coffee wasn't even that good.
Luigi, do you have
Yeah.
tell us about your like leadership journey?
Leadership journey. Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to toot my own horn and say I'm a
Mm.
leader, but let me just say and this is what I thought of when Chase was talking about how he was afraid to be a leader. Okay, and maybe to agree or disagree, but the best kind of leader, the world says, is the person who doesn't want to be a leader. Like, those are the people you want to be the leaders, because the people who
Mm.
seek out leadership are kind of sinister, right? They have like power
Mm.
issues.
Narcissistic.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to believe that sentiment, but I think it's very possible that someone who wants to be a leader can be a good leader. I mean, look at Bernie Sanders. I think he'd be a great leader. I don't know. I think he's seeking out to be a leader. So, there are examples of it, but me
What about
personally, I
Zoran
mean,
Mamdani?
oh yeah. I
He,
don't know yet. He just happened, so we'll see.
I'm super excited.
Yeah. But
I kind of agree with you, Luigi, though. I do think the best leaders are the ones that don't necessarily want to be leaders. I think what it is, it's like, because you're not seeking recognition. You're not seeking, it's almost like people who seek fame versus people
yeah.
who are pursuing talent. It's like they're not trying to be famous, they just want to express their talent. And so I
Yeah.
think for me, I never wanted to, achieve notoriety or fame or anything for SoulFam. I just wanted to build something meaningful. And so I think it's really your intention that kind of dictates how you lead.
Right. And even you have empathy for your old managers and stuff. So to me, that
Mm,
tells me,
yeah.
you're not a,
Yeah. I put them
you're
through
not
hell.
being this
I
like,
was the worst. I was the
yeah.
worst employee, guys. The worst.
So I guess my question for you in that regard is like, when you have those employees who are sassing you and being bad, like,
Mm.
do you have the patience to understand them? Or are you getting mad going like, ugh?
Yeah. It's funny actually because I'm starting to realize that people actually respect you more when you're kind, and that actually being super assertive or aggressive
Yeah,
or
that's
being a
very
hard
true.
ass,
Yeah.
it actually rubs people the wrong way, and it actually doesn't inspire them or motivate them to be their best self. And so I found it's so funny, like everything that we're taught in terms of what a good leader is actually the opposite. It's actually the person that's relatable and very clear on expectations and someone that
Yes.
they feel like they can speak to. Those are the qualities that I think people actually respect in a leader, especially in a hostile environment where it's so social and
Yeah.
it's so community based. Like they want someone who embodies those qualities.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I just say that, yeah, I agree with the kindness thing. But it's got to be like, it's got to be real kindness. Cause I think a lot of people are good at putting on the mask of kindness. And
Mm,
it's not genuine. It's
definitely.
disingenuine. And I think people can sniff that out. And I
Oh, for
like the clear
sure.
expectation thing. Definitely having clear expectations. Like that's what people appreciate in a leader. Absolutely. Understanding, relatability, clear expectations. And that's a
Definitely.
lot of in my professional life, a lot of the like
Conf-
the the conflict, thank you, Ruby.
having
The
known your
conflict in work,
boss, having
having
had
known
your
my boss.
boss, I do not envy you, and I'm happy to
Yeah.
be away.
It's yeah, not having those, you know, clear expectations. But so okay, Chase, but you also said you want to inspire, your employees. But
Mm.
why do you have to inspire why do you have to want to inspire them? Why put that pressure on yourself?
I think for me, it's because And I think and I think you all might have experienced this in your life. When you create and build something that you're so passionate about, it's very natural to want the people around you to share that same energy and to share that same commitment that you do. Because I know that if they embody that, they're going to be able to achieve the mission that we're setting out to achieve. But if they don't bring that energy and that presence, then it becomes very difficult to execute that vision. And so yeah, so I think for me, it's more so I want them to feel like they are, how do I say this? I'm very much a person where I'm very sensitive to the idea of time and not wasting your time and not
Mm,
living a life that you should not be living or following a path that's not aligned with who you are. And
okay.
so in that sense, if you don't feel inspired and motivated here, chances are that maybe this isn't the space for you. And maybe you should be following a different path where you do feel
Right.
inspired, you do feel excited. Um,
Yeah.
because I think life is too short to just be miserable doing what you do instead of doing what you love.
Yeah.
So
And I think if you keep doing what you're doing, your employees will see that and they will admire it so much. It will move them to
yeah.
action. And I say this speaking from my experience because it's the the bad bosses that aren't doing anything and delegating that make you disgruntled and angry. But when I see the ones who are doing it all and, walking beside me,
Mm,
that I'm like moved. And I've told Ruby this before, like when we worked together, I would go home and cry because I was so stressed. But before
Mm,
the other boss, I would go home and cry because I was so moved because they were such a good person.
mm,
And like that's the difference. And I think you don't have to tell your employees to be that, or you got to say, you got to be inspired. You just have to be and do your thing, and they will see it and it will
yeah,
happen because it's only, I think you only get those kinds of bad employees when, the boss is just some figure somewhere, shouting down at them.
yeah.
A-
I totally
And,
agree.
and, yeah. And if I may bring it back to me and being a leader, there was a time in life where I tried to be a leader and tried to seek out leadership. It just never materialized. But now I just feel like, well, now I'm more like a weird, I found myself in positions of being like a consulary, like just who sees problems and is just so hyper aware of dynamics that when a new leader comes, just giving them the down low, and they've just
Mm,
always appreciated that. Not to toot my own horn, but I think that's why I will never be put into a leadership position because I'm just too useful the other way and people see it. So I got to like be lazy or something.
so you like being a number two. You don't want to be Batman. You want to be Robin.
I don't know if I could be Batman, but and the number two thing is just like I think something I just am because it's just in my nature instead of like yeah, I like to gossip and complain, but it's not like true complaining. It's just like fun. But I am very proactive in just solving problems instead of like, oh, it's so and so's job. Meh, whatever. I'll just do it.
Mm,
Oh, we
that's a
need a
good point.
ladder.
That's fair.
I'll go find one. What's that, Ruby?
That's fair. Yeah, you're right. It's very self-aware and
Mm.
good. I agree with your self-assessment. Not entirely. I do think that you can be a good leader.
Well,
It's
you did work with me, so you would know.
in terms of like being practical and proactive in solving problems. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. I feel seen.
Yeah, I see. Luigi, why don't you share your perspective with us?
You mean the one I was talking about today?
No, well, whatever you want.
Oh, I didn't really have a perspective. I feel bad. I had made a joke perspective. Like, why am I always being ghosted?
Yeah,
Oh, is
go
that
for
something that you
it.
deal with?
That's
I'm
perfect.
curious about this one because I have a lot of
I
strong
don't know.
perspectives on ghosting.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's just talk about the topic of ghosting. I just think I'm bad at socializing, but I think I try. You know, I interact with people. I interact with women, and I think it's generally positive. And then they just disappear, and just tell me you don't want to talk to me anymore. Why do you got to keep me guessing for days and days? I just don't like. I mean, I know ghosting is a symptom of like some other kind of emotion you can't process because it's too overwhelming. But it's just just killing me.
Mm,
That's my
what
perspective. Is why do we have to ghost each other? Why?
and how does it
Ruby
normally
doesn't have any
go? Like
problem with that though.
like you send a message and they just don't respond? Or how does it normally go?
Yeah, and then, I'll try and be really, nice and amicable, and then eventually it always comes to this. I'll get to a point where I go like, I haven't heard from you in a while, and I hope you're doing okay." And it just seems desperate. But I never say like, "Well, forget you. Oh, you're such a expletive, whatever." I don't want to swear on the podcast. But yeah, why? Why does it happen to
Mm.
me?
I mean, I guess I have a question.
Okay.
Do you feel like you are fully opening up to the people that you're trying to get to know? Like, do you feel like you're letting people in?
I mean, if I think I'm not, I think, that's tough to answer. I'm not opening up, but I'm not, if they were to ask me something, I wouldn't deny it. But I think I
Mm,
don't open up because I don't want people to be, I don't know, uncomfortable, scared away, things like that.
Because sometimes I have this theory. I don't know if you agree, Ruby. I have a theory about ghosting that people ghost other people that they don't feel an emotional connection with. Because, see, if you feel connected to someone and they're fully opening themselves up to you, then it's harder to ghost them because you feel bad about it. But when you feel disconnected to someone, then it's easy to ghost because there was nothing there. There was nothing there that makes you feel that guilt feeling, you know? I mean, it's also a lack of emotional maturity. I mean, let's just call it for what it is.
Yeah.
But I do feel like that's the reason why I asked the question is because I do sometimes feel like people who are closed off emotionally or who don't open up easily or don't let people in tend to get ghosted a lot because at the end of the day, i- if if there's no emotional connection, then it's easy for someone to dismiss you. But that's just my theory. I don't know if you agree, Ruby.
Okay, yeah, but I do have something to say on this, but first I have a question for you. Are you saying that just to tie everything up here, you should take the risk and do something like
I knew you were going to say that.
and take the leadership in sharing and being opening up?
How do we give points for incorporating all ideas in the one hack statement? Yeah, you're right. Funny.
So
Mm.
I do get ghosted, but for
Mm.
different reasons, and I do ghost for different reasons. I ghost people who are chasers. I have a problem with chasers. I think a lot of trans
Mhm.
women have a problem with chasers.
What is wait, is that a term, a chaser, or are you speaking this is just your own
Yeah. A
word?
chaser is a person who is interested in speaking to you for the sole express purpose of having sex with you as a one night stand with zero emotional attachment. Yeah, and they don't, and it's exasperated because these people generally don't want to be seen with you in public because they are
Mm,
actually transphobic. Um,
right.
Mm.
so that's my problem with being ghosted. And I've made it clear in this podcast already that I'm an unabashedly sexual being. Like things are on the table, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to like you.
Of course.
Like it's a very simple, right? If you don't want to have coffee with me and if we can't have a good conversation and connect, it's not worth my while. So
Ruby,
it
are you
comes back
saying
to exactly what you said, Chase. If I don't feel an emotional connection with you, and I think that, or sorry, I'm saying you, like with
Yeah,
any
yeah, yeah, we
person,
know.
it's not going to happen.
Ruby, as an aside question, are you saying you're a sapiosexual and you can't just be animalistically attracted to someone?
No, I can definitely be animalistically attracted to someone, and they don't necessarily need to be like define sapiosexual. How smart do you have to be? Like the bar for
I
Mm.
never I
sapiosexuality is
never I never liked that. That's such a loaded term to me, sapiosexual. I always never trusted the person who says, "I'm a sapiosexual." Okay,
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
because you
Anybody
only
could talk
use
about
that
anything.
term if you're trying to sound smart. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
rather show.
Right.
Like, I could have intellectual conversations about soap, you know? But you have to be into the topic of soap. What kind of sapiosexual are you? That doesn't mean the
Mhm.
guy who knows a lot about soap is stupid. He knows a lot about soap. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
but the connection thing, Chase, like you just totally disqualified my whole ghost thing because that one emotional connections don't get ghosted. I'm just like, yeah, that actually does make sense. Because I'm just, having these kinds of like, I don't want to say vapid conversations with people in a digital
Mm.
space. And I think a big part of it is because of, my location and where I am. I've known people, it's funny to me. I've known people for so long on the internet and we're in the same city and we just have not met yet for whatever reason. And
Wow.
they'll always, it seems like they'll always make an excuse, but I don't know if it is an excuse or just timing, but
Mm.
we still haven't met yet. And, maybe they're just not comfortable yet. But the thing is, like, why are they still putting up with me? And why am I still putting up with them?
one
And
of
why aren't you
you
taking the initiative?
I try. I really do.
You do.
But
go to them.
as a man, right? No, I will not do that. Like, I will not. No man should just take the initiative and show up. That is a recipe for disaster.
Mm,
Like you
mm,
can't do that.
No,
So
here's what you do. Look, okay, so here's what I'm
okay,
imagining right now. I'll give you a situation that I've been in. I was speaking to this guy online, and
yeah,
he lives in another city. And I'm in Suzhou, and he says you should come visit me. I'm like,
yeah,
why? Because I like you. Why? No answer, right? So, like, we've been speaking for 2 days, like
yeah,
literally just 2 days. You expect me to go there? I'm like, I'm sorry, there's no
right,
reason for me to go there. But flip this around
mm,
to a scenario where keeps chatting. He never asks me to go to his city, and
mm,
okay,
a month or so into us chatting, he sends me a message like, "Hey, I'm in town. I'm going to there's this cool restaurant I like. I'm gonna go there. Do you want to meet up and chat?" Yes, I'm there, right? For sure.
okay, yeah,
Compared to like, hey, come to this city
yeah,
without
yeah.
right. I
even a
get that.
suggestion. So what you could do is like, hey, I'm in town. I saw this really cool restaurant. I was wondering if you'd be interested in to meet. You're inviting her to a public space in her hometown and giving her the choice and power.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm well aware of those dynamics. It's just
No, you are.
there
Yeah.
are those people who, for whatever reason, will say, "Oh, I have a cold, but maybe next week," and you're like, "Oh, okay." They're rejecting me. That's
It's just
okay.
called feet. Yeah, it's called feet.
But then, like days later, they'll talk to you again.
Yeah, that's
Send you like a
annoying.
cute little emoji, and you're like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And
Uh,
then it's push pull, and then ghosted.
and one of
Wow.
the most fun things the most fun I've had this year.
Yeah,
You guys will both know about this, and the TikTok refugee crisis when TikTok
that like
got shut down
yeah,
in
Mm,
months
the
ago.
States. A
Yeah,
bunch of TikTok users came to a Chinese app called Redbook. And all of the chat rooms just like boom spiked. There were so many people on there talking and suddenly English. And today, still, like some of the people have stayed and they keep going on to Red Note. I have met personally, face to face, 7 people that I met online on Red Note. And it's been so much fun because you create, there was zero expectation. We just started
yeah,
talking online and then like, hey, I'm gonna go to China. Is it possible that we could like meet up? And they're in Shanghai, and that's a completely different scenario, right?
wow,
I
yeah,
will pick you up at the airport
yeah,
to meet.
definitely.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's
And
fun.
also too, I was going to ask you both, have you thought about or reflected on your subconscious thoughts when it comes to relationships and dating?
I will say yes, but I don't know if that's actually true. I want to think I am reflecting, but I don't
Mm,
objectively know if I'm reflecting the right way.
because one thing I've discovered is,
Ah,
oh,
Ruby,
so
why are you
cute.
distracting us?
This is Tesla. She's the dog.
Oh, hi, Tesla.
Beautiful,
Ah, very
After
cool.
the scientist, not the car.
of course.
Mm. It's an important distinction to make. But yeah, one thing that I've discovered too that I find really fascinating is that sometimes I feel like we carry subconscious beliefs about
Yeah,
relationship into new connections, and we unintentionally push people away because they can feel our closed offness. They can feel our negativity when it comes to thinking, oh, this is just going to be another person that ghosts me or another person that
yeah,
disappoints
yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah.
You know,
Yes,
like I think
yeah,
people can feel that. And what's interesting is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where it becomes a cycle now because until we shift our subconscious beliefs about love and dating and the people that we interact with, we just keep manifesting the same outcome. And so that's another thing that I thought about with ghosting is I think sometimes it's hard to admit that we perpetuate the ghosting. We perpetuate that cycle because
Right.
of the energy that we bring to connections. And people are simply responding to our subconscious beliefs and energy and really just confirming what we already think is going to happen, which is ghosting or disappointment.
Yeah, very true. Chase, are you sure you're just a hostel owner? Sure, you're not some like LA guru. You didn't do anything like that in the past. Are you sure? So you're offering a lot of good advice today.
I do my best.
How is your dating life, if I may ask?
You said, how is my daily life?
Dating.
Oh,
Your
dating
dating
life. Oh, okay.
life.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I have my own sort of cycles and demons that I also need to break myself, which is why I think I can speak on it because as someone who continues to with, challenges in that area of my life, it's yeah, it's become very salient for me. So I think for me, the cycle that I'm trying to break is I tend to move fast because
Okay.
I'm a very passionate guy. And so when I
Right.
am into someone, then I'm just like, I'm like the opposite of cautious. I'm like, let's book a ticket. Let's plan a trip together. Let's go for it. Because I think what it is I'm so unjaded when it comes to my heart and my heart is
Mm.
so open. So I'm kind of the opposite of you, Luigi, in that I'm
Yeah.
so open and I'm so giving of my energy that oftentimes I go too quickly and don't allow the time to really get to know the person. So I think if you and I were to combine our energies, we'd be perfect.
Yeah. It seems
You
that
know?
way. Like yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely you need a delicate balance. Like
Yeah.
I can admit I am very patient and
Mm.
careful because I think I do on some level think like it's not going to work out. That's terrible.
See? And I'm the
Ugh,
opposite in that
that's
I think
tough.
everything's going to work out. So I go for it.
It's your business acumen. You're a go-getter. That's what it is.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I know that I have enough resilience to get over the heartbreak if it doesn't work out. And so
Yeah,
I
and
think that's
yeah.
the difference. It's like I'm willing to put my heart out there and be vulnerable, knowing that it can be disappointed or heartbroken, because the alternative is being cautious and that person sensing that and then not and then it makes them cautious. It makes them not want to put themselves out there. And so then you kind of have a stalemate essentially. And so
Yeah.
I've just become used to being the person that's the initiator and is like, hey, like, let's go for this. And usually it rubs off on people, even if it all comes crashing down.
Right. Oh, really good advice. I think that's really,
Yeah.
really useful.
Yeah.
I'll have to try
Yeah.
it. Now I'm gonna have to uncomfortably push myself
Yeah.
to
You'd
be a
be
go-getter.
surprised. You'd be surprised how people respond to boldness. I think people are
Yeah, I think
desperate
so.
for it. They're desperate for someone to just break away from the scripts when it comes to dating and just
Yeah.
do something completely out the norm and just kind of shake them up almost. And
Mhm.
then you find that, those are the best kind of connections, those spontaneous connections where you're just letting go. You're not overthinking it and just allowing your heart to lead and not your head, which I know a lot of
Right.
cisgender males struggle with.
Yes.
You're all in your head when you need to be in your heart space.
Uh,
Yeah,
for sure, for
definitely.
sure.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
better to just go for it. I mean, if you're gonna be hesitant and you know it's not gonna work out, then just go for it and make it not work out.
Yeah,
Because then it might work out. It's a paradox almost. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So to answer
Well,
your question, Ruby, I am single, but I am continuing to, put myself out there and Sometimes I get it right, but sometimes I get it wrong. But at the end of the day, I'm enjoying the journey regardless.
I'm sure the destination is going to be worthwhile because you're putting out all the right energy and you're going to get
Yeah, I think so.
exactly who you deserve, who is a soulmate, a great person.
Yes, I hope so.
I think that is an excellent spot to wrap up today's episode. This has been Kaleidoscope PBTS with Chase King, founder of SoulFam Hostel in Cape Town, South Africa's first LGBTQIA plus positive, expressly inclusive hostel. You can find SoulFam Hostel on www.soulfamhostel.com. I have stayed there. It is a lovely place, and I encourage anybody to do so.
Thank you so
I
much.
was also joined with Luigi. You can find Luigi on Kaleidoscope. You can find me at echoember.co.uk or on Instagram at firefromheat. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.